Hello and welcome to Playcard's brand new addition to the center. This is the Playcard White Oak Trail, which is handicapped accessible. It is a beautiful trail that is concreted all the way from the back door of Playcard Environmental Education Center all the way back down to the bottom of the swamp. We're going to be taking you on a walk down that trail and showing you what kind of educational opportunities lie along this trail for the handicapped user. As you enter the first stage of the White Oak Nature Trail, you're going to see that it leads through our little man-made habitat here in our backyard. But along this man-made habitat, we have some special features. And let's take a look at the special features we have to offer here first. Come on. Now, as human beings, we are very, very important in our ecosystem. We can either destroy some of our ecosystems or we can enhance some of our ecosystems. And what we try to do at Playcard is we've tried to enhance several of the ecosystems you see. Even in this backyard habitat, we planted some trees that are naturally endemic. That means they live in this area in all seasons of the year. This is a bald cypress, and as you can see, it is well marked and well labeled. These signs were dedicated to us by a grant through the South Carolina Forestry Commission, as well as this trail. All of this was paid for by a grant through their services. The Horry County School System put these signs in with help from Finkley Career Center. Now these signs, not only do they tell you the name and the scientific name of these trees and different aspects of the plants of the center, they will tell you the characteristics of the tree as well as the uses, the Native American as well as modern day uses of our plants. So it is a very, very unique trail system that we've designed at Playcard Environmental Education Center. One of the most unique you'll ever see. Because to me, if you come out and you see a tree, you remember it for about 5 minutes, just the name. But if you can relate that to something that means something to you, like this bald cypress was used by the Native Americans to make dugout canoes. Well, that means something. That brings it home to you. It makes it real to you. And you're more than likely going to remember that a little bit better than you would maybe just the name. So we're trying to relate to the student what these different trees and plants are and what the uses are, not just the name. It's very important that you do that throughout your teaching. Let's go see what else we have to offer on our trail. When you set the signs for a handicapped accessible trail or any nature trail, you need to have a good base. And one way to do that is driving nails into the bottom of your stakes at a 45-degree angle so you actually make a barb out the bottom. These are 16-penny nails, 3.5 inches long, very heavy shank, and you can see there's lots of them on the bottom. We dig about a 3-foot hole, 2 to 3 foot hole, and we put all of our signs in at least that deep into the ground to reduce the chances of vandalism. This is a sign for the white oak right here, and we'll be seeing a little bit more about that later. This is our signature sign for this trail, the White Oak Handicap Trail. Another common tree that you'll see along our trail here is the black cherry. This tree right here was used by many different generations of Native Americans in the fact that they took the wood of the tree and they burned bowls out of it. They actually make eating bowls, just like we use today, modern day bowls out of wood from the inner trunk of this tree here. The bark was used for different teas, for different chronic diseases. It will help that, and as well as the cherries were eaten just like we use our modern day cherries, maraschino cherries mostly, that you buy in the grocery store. Do not eat the seeds of this tree, but the cherries are really good when they're in season. The black cherry, super neat tree along the Handicapped Nature Trail. Now the Handicapped Nature Trail was an extremely difficult project to undertake. Laying this much concrete on an area that is very special ecosystem like this and not disturbing the ecosystem too much is a very difficult thing to do. It is something that can be done with a lot of time and a lot of care. And the way we laid this thing, if we'll walk down here and take a look, the gentleman from Finkley Career Center came out, and they really helped us lay this handicap trail. They set the concrete forms, which were pieces of 2x4 down either side of this thing, and they actually drove the truck, the concrete truck, drove across those forms all the way to the bottom, and then we laid each section by 100 by 100 by 100 by 100 foot sections all the way until we ended at the end of the trail. This trail is approximately 300 yards long, and if everybody knows 300 yards is about 900 feet. So that's about 900 yard or 100 foot pours of concrete that we had to do for this thing. Last year was an extremely rainy year, and we couldn't pour during the rain, so the weather was a very big challenge as well. Before we put this thing in place, we had to clear the trees out. So what we did was they came in with a fire break plow, and that's a plow that they use around forest fires to deforest a small area to where the fire will not jump it, and they can keep it under control. Well, that plow in about 2 hours came through here, and it just completely cleaned out every single tree down this trail. But now you have all these trees off either side. So we literally had to take chainsaws, tractors, and big old tow straps and wrap them around each individual trunk and drag them out one by one. And I bet there was at least 500 to 700 trees on this trail that we drug out individually using a large tractor. As you can see here, these little areas here are turnouts, and they've just been poured this week. We just finished this trail 2 days ago, and the forms of the concrete are still embedded inside this turnout. And you can see how each little section was formed here. That's a section of 2x4 that is screwed together at the corners here, and this is a section of 1x4 here, and that's 2x4. This is a turnout area where the handicapped people can come and take a rest, or anybody else that may be pushing them along. And we have got well-labeled signs. This is Adventure Pass going off behind us, a different trail. That was part of this grant as well. It's just a wonderfully coordinated, extremely difficult program for a school project to do. But we had a lot of help from a lot of different members, and we would really like to thank a lot of the members that helped on this Handicapped Nature Trail. We'll do that at the end of our segment. Let's take another walk down through here and see if we can see any other groups that helped us out along the way. Boy Scouts came in, and they put in benches on our resting pads for people if, say they're pushing a handicapped person along and they need a place to rest, they just jump right over here and they sit on one of our heavy-duty built benches, if that's a word, heavy-duty. We've got a grass terrace here. We had an erosion problem with this thing earlier this year where we had so much rain it washed out underneath the concrete, and the concrete started to actually break and fall away. So what we did was we came in with shovels and shoveled backfilled dirt in through here, and we cut erosion bars. These little bars right here are what they call water bars. As you know, water doesn't flow uphill, it flows downhill. And our whole trail, from the start to the finish, is all downhill. So basically, it's making one large water slide for water to come down through. Well, water would shoot down the side here, and at first, it would go underneath the trail, and it would eat out from undermine the trail. So what we did was we diverted that water with this water bar. It's just a pile of dirt that goes out into the woods, and it uses the natural slope of the land into the woods to divert water off. That is an excellent, simple water control measure that you can use in your yards to conserve your land from eroding too, is using a simple water bar on any down slope. All right, let's go around here and see what we've got to offer on the corner. Here's another resting pad that's just been formed. You can see the wet concrete color versus the dry concrete color here. This is one of our benches built by Boy Scouts. This is an Eagle Scout project. A gentleman from Loris came out, a young gentleman, and he got his Eagle Scout badge by coming out to Playcard and partnering with us in building these benches. So that's another group that was brought in on this project. We have like 4 or 5 major groups that helped with this activity of building this nature trail. This did take 1.5 years to complete this program. It's an extremely difficult undertaking. It takes a lot of time and effort, but if you keep your nose to the grindstone, you can get anything accomplished, and we just did get it done. Let's keep looking down through here. Here we've got one of our unique trees along the trail. We've got a slash pine, Pinus elioti. The characteristics of this tree, it says needles dark green, 8 to 12 inches long, and 2 to 3 clusters. This is uses. Wood is heavy, hard, durable, and stiff. This is very important for the lumber and shipbuilding and sealing industries. Native Americans boil the needles of this tree to make a tea to supplement their vitamin C during the winter months, and they also use the pine pitch or the pine sap for a glue to hold their arrowheads on the tip of their arrow shafts, or any other need of glue that they have. They use the pine pitch. It's a very useful plant, extremely important to the industry, lumber industry in the southeast, the slash pine. Beautiful tree, very straight. Now we come to our signature tree. It's one of the most beautiful trees at Playcard Environmental Education Center. It's a very simple tree to first sight. It is the white oak. Fagaceae quercus alba is the scientific name of it. The quercus is always your oak species, alba meaning white, so white oak. The characteristics of the tree are the leaves have 7 to 9 rounded lobes with smooth margins. In the fall, the leaves turn wine red in color. And as you can see, we've got some of these that are probably starting to turn wine red right now if you look up through the trunk, wine red to brown. Here's a leaf of a white oak. As you can see, it has lobed leaves that are rounded on the tips, very rounded lobes, as opposed to having little points, which would make it a red oak. All right, the uses of this plant here, the wood was used for making barrels, or still is today. For barrels, especially in the whiskey industry, they love white oak barrels. And in colonial times, for shipbuilding. Native Americans ground the acorns into flour, just like we grow our crops today of wheat and whatnot, where we make our flour. They use the acorns as their natural flour. It's an excellent tasting nut that comes out on the fall. It feeds a tremendous variety of wildlife, from deer to turkey. All kinds of animals will go through and they'll eat these acorns for food. Squirrels, you probably know of a lot of animals in your backyard that eat the acorn of the white oak. It grows on well-drained, sandy soils. So you know you're pretty much in a sandy soil area, close to water, but not directly on water. If you see the white oak species, it lets you read the land, so to speak. If you see that tree, that's where you are. All right. As we exit our bottomland hardwood forest, which is primarily dominated by oaks and hickories, what you're going to see is we're going to come into more of a wetland area along this trail. And as we open up into the wetland area, you're going to start to see a few different species that you didn't see on the upland, well-drained soils of the bottomland hardwood forest. Come on down here. One of the first ones you'll see, and you'll note here, this one can live on either upland or lowland soils. It's a very aggressive tree, and it grows very well, and it adapts to its changes in soil very well. Is the loblolly pine. This is probably the most important timber tree in the southeast. If you see stands of any kind of tree that have been harvested commercially, it's generally loblolly or slash pine. The characteristics of the tree are needles in 5 to 9 inches long. The bark is thick and dark, also reddish brown. The uses, the principal commercial pine of the southeast, used for lumber, plywood, and pulpwood, paper. Native Americans boiled the seeds to, Native Americans boiled the needles of this tree as well to supplement their vitamin C during the winter months. Pine pitch was used for glue. There was a tremendous amount of uses for the pine, and this is another good example of a different pine that is commercially valuable in the southeast. The loblolly pine. Pinus, I believe you say taeda, T-A-E-D-A, Pinus taeda. Here we go. We're getting ready to walk into the swamp area of Playcard now. Coming down the hill. As you exit the bottomland hardwood forest, you'll start to see the oaks start to drop off. We get fewer and fewer oaks, and you'll start to see more and more other species that are more wetland species. One of the ones that is more of a wetland plant is the common sweetleaf, or horse sugar. And if the characteristics of this thing are, the leaves of this tree are sweet, quote unquote. Botanists chew on the leaves to distinguish this species. It means if you reach up here and you get a leaf of this tree, and you fold it in half, green side up, dark green side up, chew on it, it tastes very sweet. That's why they call it horse sugar. Evidently, horses love to eat on this thing at one time. It's just a guess on my standpoint, but that is a wetland plant having more shallow root system, and it uses the water very effectively in the soil conditions very effectively to its advantage. Also on this tree, you can see right here where a yellow-bellied sapsucker has gone around and left holes, horizontal bands of holes digging all the way around trying to get to the sap. Sap bleeds out of there, bugs are attracted to the sap, yellow-bellied sapsucker comes in and eats the bugs off the sap, kind of making his own flypaper. As you continue down the trail a little bit further, you'll come to probably my favorite spot, and this is the swamp. We exit the bottomland hardwood forest. You start to see a lot of different species that are adapted to wetland soils. One of them is the American holly, and this one loves to grow in wetland soils, absolutely adores them. The uses of this tree are Native Americans use these leaves to make a tea for colds, flu, and pneumonia. The eye drops for reduction of eye inflammation. Warning, the berries considered poisonous, inducing violent vomiting. So don't eat the berries of this tree, but they're beautiful for ornamental decorations and things of that nature around Christmas time. A lot of people, this is a symbol for Christmas to a lot of people. This is the American holly leaf. It is spiny, and what that spines are is that as an adaptation for an animal, if he comes in and tries to chew on that leaf, he goes, ow! And he lets that leaf go. So that plant has evolved a way to keep the animals from chewing on it, which are these little spines. Neat little adaptation for survival about the American holly. They turn a little yellow when they drop off. It is an evergreen species. Pull one off that's green here. Stays green year-round. All right, let's come on down to the end of the Handicapped Trail. Take a look and see what we have. The Handicapped Nature Trail ends at the swamp. This is the end of the trail. Here's an accessible area here that we can pull back. You can pull this gate back, and people can fish here. They can roll their wheelchairs up to the end here. They can fish. They can. We've actually had people come down here. We've swam during summer camps in our swamp down here. It's an amazing thing. It's a beautiful ecosystem. You can see the Beaver Lodge from this point, off back to our west here. And as you look to our east, you can see the Beaver Dam. It is an excellent place to learn about beaver ecology. We have the American whitewater lily, which is going to be a later addition to our signage, which we don't have up yet. But we are going to include a lot of the different areas out here in a talking nature trail sign when this thing is complete. We're 99% done. That is the last section of the trail that we have yet to complete. What an amazing accomplishment for a group of individuals that got together and cooperated to bring handicapped people a treasure that they can only imagine. Usually, if you're handicapped to the point where you're in a wheelchair, it's very difficult for you to go down a trail. You'll hit roots, you'll trip over everything. You just can't get there unless you have a four-wheel drive or something. But down through here, you can just come right on down here. You can access it yourself. It is a very empowering thing for a handicapped person to be able to do that. Come through the woods by themselves, come to share a little bit of nature on their own. It's a very unique thing. It is completely downhill, so you may want somebody to help you push you back up the hill if you're a little more handicapped than others. But if you had a powered wheelchair, you can power it down, power it right back up, no problem. There are all kinds of handicaps out there. We have people that are visually impaired, hearing impaired, and we are going to take steps in the future to accommodate those people on this trail with different signs that may talk. They will actually, if you're visually impaired and that type of thing. To a blind person, this is a natural wonderland of sound. And if you close your eyes right here, you can hear all kinds of different things going on. We would like to thank our sponsors out here for this trail. The first sponsor we'd like to thank is the South Carolina Forestry Commission. Without their grant funding, we couldn't have happened. This trail could not have happened. We had a community and urban forestry grant that completed this entire trail. Second group of people we'd like to thank is the Horry County School District for allowing Finkley Career Center people to come out. The boys from Finkley Career Center, that class under Ron Tiller, came out and did a tremendous job all year long, busted their tails for a year and a half on getting this thing done and down here. So what a wonderful help. We would also like to thank Blanton's Building Supply for helping out with this wide accessible, handicap accessible trail, because they donated some of the lumber for this dock right here, and they worked hand and foot with us on building this dock you're standing on today. We wouldn't have this if it wasn't for Blanton's Building Supply in Loris, South Carolina. We'd like to thank Ready Mix Concrete for allowing us a special price for our concrete for our trail. And let's see, is there anybody else out there to thank? Any other volunteers that we missed and we forgot about you? Oh, the interns from Coastal Carolina University. We would like to thank them, because without them, especially Cameron Lepley, a person that was in the recreation department at Coastal, as well as a couple of the interns from the science department at Coastal. Fantastic help on the trail. I couldn't have done it without you guys covering for us at both ends. This is a wonderful, wonderful addition to Playcard. We couldn't have done it without you. And that just shows how cooperation helps build the environment for future generations. It's a wonderful addition and something that will be many generations of people should enjoy. It's a handicapped nature trail, a very unique part of an ecosystem. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. Okay, as we walk down the nature trail, this month, species of the month can be found hanging along the trees. Now, it's not an animal that hangs on a tree. It's a special kind of plant that lives on other plants. That means an epiphyte. Epi meaning surface of, phyte meaning loving, epiphyte, surface-loving plant. Okay? We've got some right here in this tree. It is Spanish moss. And Spanish moss is actually more scientifically akin to a pineapple than it is the true moss that you see growing on the trees. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot of real unique uses of this plant right here. If you're in the woods and you don't have anything else to go with, this is what you can use instead of toilet paper. Spanish moss. Watch out for the red bugs though, because they'll tell you a story all their own. Now, Spanish moss was used by the Native Americans in the diapers for diaper absorbent because it's extremely absorbent material. Matter of fact, the reason why it is so absorbent is these little scales that it uses to absorb water from the atmosphere and live on right there, absorb all kinds of liquids very well. It doesn't have any kind of real heavy root system to it. It's very unique in the plant world in that it doesn't have many roots. But it hangs on the tree stems like that, absorbs enough water and actual dust particles, feed it enough in the air with its nutrients to keep it growing. It's a very slow growing plant over time, colonizing many beautiful areas along swamps and rivers and lakes. It likes oak trees, sometimes may be found in pines, and it will be windblown in these hollies and different things. Wherever it lands, it will grow. It's an amazing, adaptable plant and one that was very useful throughout our history. Matter of fact, the saying, good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite, comes from the Spanish moss. Back years ago, when people used to live on, and they'd sleep on mattresses that had ropes going underneath the mattress. It had 2 screws on the end of those ropes to tighten them up every night. When you said good night, sleep tight, that means you tightened up the screws on either end of that rope going under your mattress. Don't let the red bugs or bed bugs that were in the Spanish moss, which you stuff your mattress with to sleep on at night, bite. So good night, sleep tight, don't let the red bugs or bed bugs bite from the Spanish moss. Very useful plant throughout history, and one that you can find growing in many different areas in Horry County. Get out and enjoy some today. As we stand among this beautiful platform right here that was built with the help of Finkley Career Center and all of the hands-on labor from Blanton's Building Supply in Loris, South Carolina, and the end of our glorious handicapped nature trail here that was brought to you with funds from the South Carolina Forestry Commission in cooperation with Horry County School District. We would just like to thank everybody for helping this thing. This deck is a wonderful addition to the center, so is the trail as well as the signs. Many different partners come together to help the environment. And everybody out there watching this show needs to be a partner in helping the environment as well. Just like this program shows what people can do when they cooperate for a very noble goal, we all should cooperate toward a very noble goal of helping to save our environment. For Forever Wild, my name is Ben Roadkill Abercrombie, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.